This case has recently captivated Japan because cases like this are truly once in a decade. Susukino, Sapporo's red light district, is generally a safe area. However, the true story I'm about to tell you challenged that very reputation and continues to be discussed all across Japan today. Before we dive in, I'm your host Victor. Welcome to Crime's Anatomy. If you enjoy exploring the darker side of human nature, give this video a thumbs up to support my efforts and subscribe for more worldwide true crime. Let's go. July 2nd, 2023, at 3 p.m., staff at Hotel Let's grew suspicious when the guests at room 202 failed to check out long past their scheduled time. After knocking on the door and receiving no response, they found it locked from the inside. Concerned, they used their master key to enter the room, but they were not ready for what they discovered inside, and it would be etched in their mind forever. A headless male body lay crouched in the bathtub. The body was pale, almost as if blood had been drained from it, and it bore multiple stab wounds from a sharp object, likely a knife. Yet, the head was nowhere to be found. Police arrived promptly and launched a full investigation. Strikingly, despite the gruesome scene in the bathroom, no blood was found in the bedroom area of the hotel room. In fact, the bedroom looked immaculate, as if it had never been used. A thorough search of the scene revealed no murder weapon or any other identifying signs. The victim was identified as Hitoshi Ura, and his family had recently filed a missing persons report. Identification was made through fingerprints and a distinctive surgical scar from the appendix removal surgery that he had. Investigators focused on tracing Ura's last movements and identifying the person who had accompanied him into the hotel room. They reviewed surveillance footage from the hotel and conducted forensic analysis of the crime scene. They interviewed hotel staff and potential witnesses and traced the victim's movements leading up to his death. Hitoshi Ura was a 62-year-old salaryman working a white-collar job in an office in Aniwa, about 30 kilometers from the hotel. Interestingly, he was also a cross-dresser, a detail that would emerge later again in the investigation. An autopsy revealed that Ura had no defensive wounds, indicating he was likely caught off guard. Alcohol was found in his system, and he died from hemorrhagic shock due to multiple stab wounds, including a deep laceration near the neck. The autopsy concluded that his head had been decapitated after death. The time of death was estimated to the night of July 1st or the early morning of July 2nd. Hitoshi Ura had attended a disco event before heading to the hotel that night. It was discovered that he had traveled by car from his home in Aniwa to Sapporo, approximately 30 kilometers away. His vehicle was later found in a nearby parking lot near the hotel. Witnesses recalled seeing Hitoshi at the event.
I think he was dressed as Lady Gaga, and he attracted attention with his shiny clothes and shiny bag. He is usually a quiet person, but when he changes into his costume, he blends into the disco environment and becomes a very social person. I never would have guessed he was in his 60s.
Based on the surveillance footage, Hitoshi arrived at the hotel at 10:50 p.m. on July 1st, accompanied by a woman with blonde hair, wearing a fisherman's hat and a face mask. They entered room 202 together. Three hours later, around 2 a.m. on July 2nd, surveillance footage captured a small blonde-haired woman covered and dressed entirely in black with a small backpack, swiftly leaving the hotel while towing a large black suitcase. She was picked up by a silver car at approximately 2:15 a.m. It's crucial to note that when hotel staff entered room 202, all the windows and doors were locked. Who was this mysterious woman who had entered the hotel room with Hitoshi? The nature of the crime was chilling. Decapitating a body so cleanly is no easy feat. Given the intricate musculature and bone structure, forensic experts speculated that the perpetrator might possess medical knowledge or have familiarity with such an act before. July 24th, 2023. 3 weeks had passed when police finally had a breakthrough. They identified the woman from the surveillance footage as 29-year-old Runa Tamura, based on her traits and Hitoshi's social media accounts. The police conducted searches at the Tamura family residence in Atsubitsu. The police were not ready for what they were about to uncover. The house was filled with garbage and an overwhelming stench. In the bathroom on the second floor, they discovered a decomposing human head, presumed to be Hitoshi, along with his belongings. They also found the black outfit and the blonde wig seen in the surveillance footage, alongside numerous blood-stained items, including 20 knives and 4 saws, several of which were located in Runa's room. In total, the police collected 42 cartons of evidence. Shortly before the murder, Runa had purchased knives, saws, a raincoat, a blonde wig, toy handcuffs, hair removal cream, and the black suitcase she used. All was captured on a shop's CCTV camera. Her father, Osamu Tamura, had paid for these items with his own credit card. Moreover, the smartphones of all 3 family members revealed a search history for Susukino murder between the time Runa left the hotel on July 2nd and around 3 p.m. when the body was discovered. With all this suspicious evidence, the police believed the entire Tamura family might have been involved, and they arrested all 3 members. Osamu Tamura, Runa's father, a well-respected psychiatrist and the head of the psychiatry department. Hiroko Tamura, Runa's mother, a part-time housewife. Runa Tamura, the 29-year-old unemployed daughter. Following their arrest, Runa's grandfather spoke to the media, claiming that Hitoshi had previously wronged Runa, and this was her way of avenging herself. But what exactly had Hitoshi done? Was it really this simple, or was there more than meets the eye? Well, the detectives and the entire nation were not ready for what they were about to uncover. Remember that silver car that picked Runa up from the hotel at 2:15 a.m.? It turns out that the driver was her own father, Osamu. The question is, what was he doing picking his daughter up from a love hotel? And was he aware that his daughter had a fresh human head in her suitcase? It seems the family was not as innocent as they appeared. The head was kept in their home, and there are suspicions that both the mother and father were aware and even complicit in the cover-up, not to mention the search history of Susukino murder on all their smartphones, even before the body was discovered, indicated they were searching for any news of the crime. Runa's mother was suspected of having prior knowledge of the crime and even helping Runa conceal the head in their home. Neighbors, family, and friends were shocked to learn of the family's arrest. They could hardly believe that this seemingly polite and helpful family could be linked to such a violent crime. And this is why the prosecution is pursuing charges against all 3 family members.
The father is a doctor, and the mother loves gardening. I once saw the long-haired daughter walking with her mother, looking like they were getting along very well. They seemed like an impeccable, perfect family of 3.
Reported a resident living near the Tamura home. However, neighbors began to notice that Osamu Tamura had been acting strangely in the days leading up to the arrest. He would return home, only to leave again, almost immediately, often seen eating convenience store bento meals in his car and spending hours sitting inside it after returning home. As police examined the family's background more closely, speaking to friends and acquaintances, they began to paint a more complex picture of the Tamuras. See, Osamu Tamura was not just a respected psychiatrist, but also a community figure known for his helpfulness. He played in a band and always prioritized his family. His wife, Hiroko Tamura, was described as a soft-spoken woman who had worked at an art gallery before dedicating herself to homemaking after Runa's birth. Hiroko was artistic and had a passion for gardening. Both parents were fiercely protective of Runa, their only child, showering her with love and attention. Osamu even named his YouTube channel after her. A jeweler who was frequently visited by the parents mentioned how the parents purchased gems and jewelry for their daughter, who had a fondness for precious stones. They always spoke fondly of her, painting a picture of a doting family. In stark contrast to her parents, though, Runa had a troubled reputation. She stopped attending school after elementary, and one of her former classmates recalled how she rarely showed up after switching schools in the 4th or 5th grade. When she did attend, she was often quiet and withdrawn, failing to engage with her peers. One incident stood out in particular, which was a troubling event, to say the least.
I said to her, "You look like an anime character." And then she suddenly jumped on me, holding a box cutter to my neck. My friends tried to pull her off, but she warned, If you say that again, I'll stab you. I truly believe she was going to do it.
As she grew older, Runa struggled to maintain employment. A classmate who knew her in adulthood described her as a quiet girl with a unique outlook on the world. While the classmate admired her father's profession, they noted that Runa could be selfish and seemed to dominate her household. Neighbors mentioned that Runa rarely smiled and appeared emotionless, and recently they hadn't seen her at all. Concerns about her independence lingered throughout her upbringing. An acquaintance revealed that Runa was mentally unstable, unemployed. But what detectives discovered next was considered extremely strange. The Tamura family were far from ordinary. Detectives uncovered a twisted dynamic within the seemingly perfect family. Runa had a normal childhood and upbringing with two loving parents who supported her interests, including her love for Harry Potter. Friends were even invited over to her home to play. However, by 9th grade, she had stopped going to school altogether, becoming increasingly reclusive. Runa began to adopt various identities, calling herself Cynthia amongst others. She claimed to host several dead spirits within her, and even spoke to an imaginary serial killer boyfriend. She held a wedding ceremony to marry this fictional character, with her parents participating. Over time, Runa's behavior escalated to alarming levels. She would scream uncontrollably and had attempted self-harm 6 years prior. Concerned for her well-being, Osamu brought Runa in for evaluation, leading to her diagnosis of schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder. This diagnosis made her eligible for disability support from the government. Later, she was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but eventually stopped attending her appointments, opting only for antidepressants after claiming she felt unwell on her prescribed medication. Perhaps it was out of fear of her outbursts and fragile mental state that her parents indulged her every whim. Whatever Runa wanted, they provided, effectively giving her a blank check. They seemed eager to please her, but this dynamic extended further. In their household, her parents did not simply call her by name. They referred to her as a Josan, a term without a direct English equivalent, but denoting an esteemed dignitary. This language choice illustrated a troubling hierarchy, with her parents figuratively bowing down to their own daughter. On the flip side, Runa did not address her family with any respect. She referred to her father as her driver or chauffeur. Whenever he was available, he would take her wherever she wanted to go, including dropping her off and picking her up from clubs, often spending the entire night out with her. While one might argue he did this to keep a watchful eye on her, police uncovered more puzzling aspects of the peculiar rules and behaviors within the Tamura household. Around the house, there were several copies of a slave pledge posted. The pledge included statements from the mother declaring herself a slave and a reminder of her position. She was not to waste the princess's time or be wasteful with money or gas. When questioned about the towering pile of garbage in their home, the parents explained that they had an agreement not to touch the daughter's belongings. The accumulation was so extensive that the parents barely had a place to sleep. Hiroko slept in the cramped area of the living room, while Osamu resorted to sleeping outdoors in internet cafes. The mother also sent constant texts to her father on the well-being and status of their daughter. But there were instances when the mom handled Runa's belongings, which provoked her daughter's fury. In one such outburst, Runa demanded that her father sell her mother into prostitution as punishment. On another occasion, she attempted to strangle her own father while he was driving, angered by some trivial issue. Each time, the parents accepted this behavior, fearing the impact on Runa's fragile mental state if they did not. They would apologize to her once she calmed down, inadvertently reinforcing her volatile behavior. Now, let's explore how the victim, Hitoshi, initially met Runa. In May 2023, Runa expressed a desire to attend a party at a club, and as usual, her father drove her there. It was at this club that she met Hitoshi. Almost instantly, they were flirtatious and hugging each other. Allegedly, it was easier for Hitoshi to approach women and be touchy with them because he too enjoyed dressing as one. Throughout the night, Runa's father kept a watchful eye from a distance, but never intervened. At some point, Runa left the club with Hitoshi and headed to a love hotel. For those unfamiliar, love hotels are temporary accommodations where people engage in intimate encounters. But it raises the question, how many fathers would watch their daughter flirt with a stranger in a club and then allow her to go off with that stranger to a love hotel? It's unclear whether Osamu drove her there himself. But what is certain is that Runa returned to her father's car. Allegedly, she was angry because Hitoshi did not use protection as they had agreed prior, and she felt she had been taken advantage of. She demanded that her father take her to obtain Plan B, and was furious the entire way. and that's what sparked her desire for revenge. What transpired in that hotel room remains unclear. According to her family statements, she was a victim. Fast forward to June 2023, Runa, accompanied by her father again, began searching for Hitoshi in local bars and clubs. She eventually found him and obtained his contact information, enticing him with an intriguing proposition. Runa professed a fantasy to Hitoshi, claiming he would be the perfect partner for her to enact her desires. She expressed an interest in exploring S&M fantasies as a dominatrix, and Hitoshi, intrigued, agreed to meet up on an upcoming date to enact these fantasies. The date was set for July 1st, 2023. Runa asked her mother to purchase some new S&M toys for her. She was already in possession of some, but she wanted some new ones. Again, one has to wonder, how many mothers would buy such an item for their daughter? What could possibly motivate such a decision? While it's unclear exactly what Runa purchased, one can imagine the type of items used in these practices. But the most shocking revelation is that in preparation for her upcoming date, Runa allegedly practiced S&M on her own father. Can barely understand it. A respectable head of psychiatry, bound in chains, and subjected to God knows what else by his own daughter. How did he even agree to this? Isn't this the kind of behavior that's reinforcing his daughter's delusions? Especially for a trained professional who should know better. I'm truly at a loss for words. In the lead up to this date, Runa's parents texted Hitoshi, trying to persuade him not to meet up with their daughter. It remains unclear how they obtained this contact information, but they did make an effort to reach out. But despite their warnings, Hitoshi refused to cut ties with Runa and insisted on going ahead with their date. To put this into perspective, Hitoshi was 62 years old, older than Runa's own father. Osamu was 59 at the time. Allegedly, he rejected pleas from Runa's parents not to go to the hotel with her and engage in S&M. But let's take a moment to reflect on these implications. Hitoshi was also a married man with a wife and 2 adult sons, but he enjoyed cross-dressing and meeting women at clubs. Rumors circulated that he had been banned from several establishments for being too touchy-feely. He also didn't look his age, and when he dressed up, he was often referred to as Tomo-chan, as he bore a resemblance to former AKB48 member Mitano Tomomi, a comparison he happily embraced. On July 1st, 2023, Runa and Hitoshi arrived at the hotel, as captured by CCTV, and entered the room together. Runa was wearing a blonde wig, a black hat, a mask, and dressed in casual clothing, and she carried a large suitcase. Hitoshi checked them into the Love Hotel using the unmanned check-in terminal. Forensics later confirmed that the bed had not been used, but in the bathroom, Hitoshi had been attacked multiple times with a folding knife. The absence of defensive wounds suggested that he had been restrained during the assault. The fatal blow was the laceration to the neck. After Hitoshi passed away, Runa placed the head in the suitcase she had brought and then cleaned up the bathroom. During the entire attack, she wore a raincoat that was later found to be covered in blood at her own home. At 2 a.m. on July 2nd, Runa was seen leaving the hotel alone, now dressed in black, and pulling on her suitcase. She avoided eye contact with the camera and another guest entering the hotel, and her father was waiting in the silver car. He picked her up at 2:15 a.m. and brought her straight home. Given the multiple scenarios involved in each family member leading up to the crime, investigators believe they must have had prior knowledge of this premeditated act. Consider the following points: the warnings to Hitoshi not to meet Runa, the mother purchasing S&M tools, and Runa actually practicing S&M on her father. Could it be that Runa wanted revenge for what Hitoshi had done to her a month ago? Or was this narrative merely a fabrication for her to play out her deviant fantasies, as her family had not only played into her delusions, but actually enabled her and magnified them? Perhaps they felt Hitoshi was the perfect victim and did nothing to stop their daughter. How can a psychiatrist who treats others for mental health issues have a daughter that's so far gone, seemingly by his own encouragement? The words irony and hypocrisy fail to capture the magnitude of this man's failures, where his personal life is stacked up against his professional achievements. A day later, on June 3rd, Runa further mutilated the head by removing the skin. According to her mother, she believed Runa had merely gone to engage in S&M with Hitoshi until she discovered Hitoshi's skinned head in their bathroom. Runa took multiple photos of the head on her cell phone during the process. Despite this horrifying discovery, her parents did nothing. In fact, on July 7th, Runa requested her mother to come and film her play with the head. Her mother hesitated and instead sent multiple text messages to her husband, urging him to come home immediately. When Osamu hurried back from work, he took on the role of videographer, filming Runa as she further dissected and dismembered the head, moving the eyeballs, tongue, esophagus, and trachea. Specifically, there exists a video of her removing the right eyeball with the tongue and eyeball stored in specimen glass jars. This footage solidified the charges against her, showcasing Runa playing with the severed head while using gloves, all under the watchful eye of her own father. Fast forward to March 6, 2024. The Sapporo District Public Prosecutor's Office indicted Runa on charges of murder, mutilation of a corpse, possession of a corpse, and abandonment of a corpse. Her father, Osamu, was charged with aiding and abetting murder, while her mother, Hiroko, faced charges of aiding and abetting mutilation and abandonment of a corpse. In court, Hiroko broke down in tears, expressing her helplessness upon discovering the head in the bathroom. She denied any involvement or awareness of the crime itself. On the other end of the courtroom, Hitoshi's wife described her late husband as a caring husband and father, recounting how, when the Hokkaido Prefectural Police reached out to her to identify the body, she had replied, "I'll know when I see his face." But she wasn't prepared for what the detective said next. "He has no head." Hitoshi's son expressed his inability to accept that his father had been murdered in such a cruel and senseless manner. He described his father as someone who made others happy, adamant that Hitoshi would never assault a woman. Runa pleaded not guilty, and her son struggled to comprehend how Runa could take his father's life, yet still have the potential to live a normal existence. In court, Osamu apologized, saying, "Words cannot express what I feel. We did something that can never be undone. I am so sorry." As a psychiatrist, he explained that he had made the decision not to deny his daughter's delusions. He claimed he tried everything to fulfill Runa's wishes in hopes of stabilizing her mental health, but had refused to do anything that might endanger her life or cause trouble for others. However, Osamu admitted that he himself had driven Runa to and from the hotel where the incident occurred, and was aware of the possibility that she had committed murder. When asked by the defense counsel why he did not confirm the truth with Runa, he replied, "It was such a terrible thing that I was speechless. At the same time, she wasn't herself. She was Cynthia, and we were strangers. I did not think our questions would reach her." Osamu explained that he did not call the police because he felt he would be betraying his daughter by turning her in. Many in Japan have commented how Hiroko and Osamu raised a devil's child who then became a monster. So, who is to blame for this crime? Does the responsibility solely rest on Runa, or are her parents complicit? And what about the image of the victim, Hitoshi, as described by his family? There's just so much to unpack here. Typically, in Japan, murder can carry a sentence of life imprisonment or the death penalty, particularly in cases involving heinous acts, especially if the crime is premeditated. For Runa, given the nature of the crime and the evidence against her, she will either be deemed insane or more likely face a potential life imprisonment if convicted. Her parents, Osamu and Hiroko, may face lesser sentences than Runa as they are charged with aiding and abetting rather than directly committing the crime. However, the court may consider the roles in enabling Runa's behavior and their failure to report the crime, which could influence their sentences. Ultimately, the specific sentences will be determined by the court based on the trial's proceedings and the judge's discretion. Since the trial is ongoing, it's impossible to predict the exact sentences at this point, but I will update you in my community post as soon as it's released. Now, viewers, if you stayed with me till the end, thank you. Give this video a thumbs up, it helps promote it on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe to get notified of my upcoming content. Have a great day, folks.